Good morning and welcome to the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. At this time, Gail, I'm going to ask a roll call, please.
Commissioner Myers,
Here.
Glenn Brown,
Here.
Deborah Knoll,
Here.
Artie Fryer, Greg Fursell, David Newell, or Tracy Noyes,
Here.
Emily Hugart, Ian Martin, Christina Melling, Clarendon Sennett, Beth Pasek, Mark Harshberger, Deborah LaKenta,
Here.
Jennifer Waskovich,
Here.
Alexia Wiggins,
Here.
Councilman Schisler,
Here.
Kristen Thomas, Megan Krieger, Indira Chambers, John Vargas, Cassandra Blaylock,
Here.
Jerry Stickney,
Here.
and let's see here. I am not showing that we have an in-person quorum. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I do see Artie Fryer has joined us online. All right, so without the in-person quorum, we cannot take action on minutes or any of the action items today unless somebody shows up.
Yes, very well aware. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to ask in honor of the late Gail Miller that we have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We have a quorum now. Okay, Gail, we have a quorum now. Can you state your name for the record?
Indira Chambers.
Thank you.
Emily Hugart with the Agency for Healthcare Administration.
You have the two names, Gail?
I do, and that will allow me to do the declaration of quorum.
Thank you, thank you. At this time, we'll move right into our public comments, and I think we have one person to speak. If you just come on up and share your comments with us this morning. Good morning, if you just state your name.
Good morning, my name is
Can you
Mimi.
come a little closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
Good morning, my name
Hold
is.
on, let's make sure it's on.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, my name is Marina Sturmerhorn.
Is the mic on? Okay, county staff, please turn the mic up so we can hear, please. It's on. Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Come a little closer, speak right into the mic.
Should I say my name again?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Marina Sturmerhorn. I guess maybe it's not a comment, but I did want to propose an idea I had. They don't really teach you how to participate in local government, so I'm just trying my best and making a shot. I had an idea. Well, I called it the TBATS, the Tampa Bay Area Transit Shuttle. And it's basically a lifted platform, magnetic propelled train that runs from Plant City to hopefully St. Pete, but that's Pinellas County, so it'd be different. But either downtown Tampa or St. Pete, with park and ride stops in Brandon. And if it goes to St. Pete, then one in downtown as well. And it was intended to be a commuter option. I've noticed a lot recently, and specifically Brandon, they're doing a lot of road widening or construction, which I think is helpful, but I think it's a finite solution. Eventually, we're going to run out of space to go outwards. And I think by reducing the number of cars on the road, it'll reduce traffic and carbon emissions and personal cost for gas and car maintenance. and people can reinvest that money they save into the local economy. And yeah, that was my idea,
Okay,
very loosely.
Alan, we have another staff here, can get a name and contact. Okay, we can get that, and we can respond back. Thank you so much for your comments. We
Thank
have
you.
all her information, phone number, email. Okay. Thank you, Wally. At this time, I ask for approval of our minutes.
To approve. Second, Glenn Brown.
We have a motion by Councilman Schiffler, second by Glenn Brown. Do we have any opposers of the minutes? Anyone who opposes our minutes? Hearing none, our minutes have been approved. The next item is to discuss our board meeting starting next month, which is October. Will all be in person. We will not have any members asking for a special forum for the person who's not here but is online. So that's starting next month. Okay. And we're just joining our major board, doing the same thing. We made that decision also last month at our board meeting as well. Okay, moving right along to any questions? So while we're all here, thank you so much for taking time to get here this morning. But next Monday, even gonna be more a little important, because we won't be able to vote from being online, okay? All right. So action items. It'll be Elizabeth. Good morning.
Good morning, Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. And the item before you today is the MOU on creating a Tampa Bay MPO. So to orient you a little bit, this is a map of the urbanized area in which MPOs are federally mandated to serve. So you can see here in yellow, our urbanized area has grown tremendously and it crosses 3 counties, Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas. And each of those areas now have their own independent MPOs, like the Hillsborough TPO that you all serve as a committee for. So earlier this legislative session, a law was passed requiring the 3 MPOs to submit a feasibility study exploring the benefits, costs, and process of merging into one single MPO. So that report is due to the legislature and the governor by calendar year end. That was part of the impetus for this regional MPO discussion. So for those of you who've been around the MPO world for a while, you've probably heard about proposals about MPO mergers. It comes up every 5 or 10 years or so. I think most recently in 2019, there was a study analyzing merging the 3 counties into one MPO. So in a broad stroke, the proponents of merger say that will build trust and collaboration, have a regional voice for transportation projects, and really set that transportation agenda. Commissioner or Secretary Gwynn, who is the Secretary for District 7 FDOT, will often say that he goes to Tallahassee and he thinks his observations have been that Orlando competes more effectively for those discretionary transportation grants because they have that regional consensus. Now, on the flip side, opponents of the merger will often say it would kind of dilute neighborhood influence and prioritize regional large-scale projects over smaller-scale local safety or mobility projects. And it could possibly weaken the coordination between land use and transportation. Right now, 2 of the MPOs, Hillsborough and Pinellas, we sit within the Comprehensive Planning Agency, so there's really nice synergy between land use planning and transportation. So in your packet, there is an MOU that is being circulated to all 3 MPOs to sort of set out the local guiding principles of a merger. I won't go through it in detail because I know you all have a big agenda today. But essentially, the purpose of the MOU is to lay out that process for a merger in a locally driven way based on a few principles that the 3 MPOs can agree upon. Additionally, the MOU sets a target for merging by July 1st of 2027. So 2 of the two notable items in the MOU is about apportionment or voting membership of that regional board. So the MOU states that whatever that regional board membership looked like, that it be proportional based on population. And that's consistent with state and federal statutes. Another thing that the MOU emphasizes is the importance for outreach with local governments, with the public, with committees to ensure that this merger, if the boards decide to do that, to take that path, that it's done in a locally driven way that meets the interest of the 3 counties. So merging MPOs is a complicated process. There's actually no precedent here in Florida for merging MPOs. So we're kind of charting our own path here. So I won't go through all of these items, but just wanted to illustrate that there are a number of decision points that will need to be made. But in 2023, the 2 major items are, 1, determining or getting close to determining what that voting structure would look like for a regional MPO, as well as clearly outlining those costs, a business model, a budget of what it would take to get a regional MPO stood up, as well as outreach, like I mentioned earlier. Again, outreach is very important. So we recently closed a public opinion survey. It closed last Sunday. We got over 1,700 responses from the 3 counties, and we are analyzing that data now. And we'll be reporting back to the MPOs and committees once we have that analysis put together. But again, we felt it was really important with something of this magnitude to take a very thoughtful, inclusive approach. So the input survey is one of many opportunities that the public will have to weigh in if a regional MPO is what the decision makers decide to do. So one item I wanted to put before the board today, as this regional conversation progresses, is what would you like to happen to the TD board? As y'all are well aware, having a transportation disadvantage coordinating board is required by state statute. So right now, each of the 3 MPOs has their own. But if there was a regional MPO, would you advocate to still continue to stay within Hillsborough County? Do you think there should be one regional TD board, or should there be a compromise between the 2? So just starting to think about, if this happens, how would you like the TD board to be shaped? So for immediate next steps, there's something called the Tampa Bay Transportation Management Area Leadership Group, and that's a committee with representation from the 3 MPOs. And in September, they'll be considering some impacts or some proposals for that voting membership, as well as a business model. And then in early fall, each of the 3 MPO boards will consider signing that MOU that's in your packet here. And then by December, that feasibility plan will be finalized and transmitted to Tallahassee. So the action before you today is to consider support or not supporting the creation of a Tampa Bay MPO MOU. And that recommendation will be shared with the TPO board at their October meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Now I want to go into board discussion so that we can talk about the recommendation and after hearing her report. Let's have some dialogue. We're talking about a merger. Councilman Sisler.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. It's inevitable. It's going to happen due to the state mandate. But to the specific question about the TD board, I kind of think I'd like to see it stay local. 3 TD boards, local issues. Our issues are the same as Pasco. Our issues are the same as Pinellas. And I would like to see if there's a way to maintain the local board with representation to the regional board, so that we can expand on our concerns and have a voice, a local voice in what we need done for our constituents and our people. And we should maintain that.
Thank you so much. Blaine?
Yeah, I agree about the MPO probably being inevitable. And I'm not so sure that's really bad, because on a federal level, we're looked at as an MSA anyway. So in terms of that sort of region thing, see logic. I kind of lean towards your thoughts as well, Councilman, in terms of the local representation. The demographics of all three regions are slightly different. We do have slightly different issues. So little challenged to think a merger would be good. I am curious, though, what are the differences between what the three TD boards are handling? So, I mean, that would help me understand a little more what they're considering, other than, gee, we should just group everything together. But I also believe there's some distinct differences between the regions that probably need to be attended to by people in those regions.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
I just have a comment. Is this a trend in areas that have done it? Is there any precedent for it being a positive impact on the community?
Well, based on my research, it doesn't happen very often. The most recent merger that I'm aware of nationally was in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. And there have been kind of mixed reviews from it. I think the main concern from the local municipalities is that they will lose their voice in that project prioritization setting, and they just want as many dollars that they can keep in their local government as possible. But there really isn't a lot of precedent out there, but this MOU is one tool to make it advantageous for the three counties.
I attend the TD meetings for Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough, and I would be curious to see what a hybrid option looks like, so that you could keep your issues local, but then be able to get together and look at that bigger picture for those three counties. I think that would be interesting if some kind of hybrid option would be available.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that the Orlando area was more successful with getting grants based on their regional structure. And was that something that was used when it was being considered to make this a regional? And what is the case for the regional structure, right? And aside from just you have a better chance at getting money.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really just anecdotal observations on bringing more dollars in from somebody like the secretary who is a part of that process. One thing I should have made very clear that the formula funds will not change. So the amount that we get right now, like that pie does not expand at all. It just is kind of consolidated a bit. It stays stagnant. I do think that if we were to ask a proponent of why you should do this, the number one argument would be because you could get more of those discretionary grants, or you've got 3 counties of elected officials with relationships in Tallahassee and relationships in DC that you can maybe lobby more effectively for projects once you have that consensus. So that's my understanding of why this is really being proposed.
And just as a follow-up, as you did your research on this kind of thing, as Councilman Schussler said, this is going to happen, right? It's going to happen. So how do we really leverage what's going to happen to our best advantage? And have you done any research on that?
So in 2019, TBARTA led a study about best practices, interviewed MPOs from all around the country of effective tools. So there are definitely strategies out there that I think the elected officials will consider in the formation of a regional MPO. So there's plenty of research out there. I wish I could give you some specific examples of why we should be doing this or what we could do as this is formed. I guess what I will say is that it's definitely more advantageous if this is a locally driven process rather than the state saying you shall, because the feasibility report does not require a merger. It just is a report. Okay. But if this MOU shows that we can come to agreement and we can do it on our own terms, I think there are much more opportunities to make it advantageous for the region.
Okay, so thank you.
Allison?
If I could add on the question of a regional TD board, there actually currently is a mechanism, a dormant regional TD board that has done some plans in the past. It's dormant, and we're actually thinking about reviving it. So we've done a tri-county access plan. I think when you were there for that, our jobs access plan many years ago. And you're going to hear about the TD ride guide today. That covers 3 counties, that ride guide. So there is a kind of a dormant mechanism. And I think right now, according to legislation, TPOs, TD boards need to be tied to an MPO. But we probably need to look into more detail on that because I'm wondering if they could also be associated with county. Just like the Sunshine Line is associated with county. So that's something to think about in the future. But we were actually thinking about reviving the regional conversation. Yeah, in the future.
Any other comments before? Yes, go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. The Jerry Stickney Sunshine Line. So another thing, is there were the local coordinating board set the requirements and eligibility for TD as well. So it's different in each of those locations. So I think we need to take that into consideration as well when we look at that as well, because obviously our eligibility is different from the other counties as well. So want to keep that in mind as we look into this.
Yes, sir.
Just one last thought, because none of us mentioned it, but we talked about funding and money and pulling things down. I'd like to hear a little more about the advantages for people living in the region in terms of coordinating. I know we get a lot of people commuting from Pinellas to work here, and a lot of our people go to Pinellas to work. I mean, a lot of people from Pasco try to work with our school system. How is this MPO going to facilitate or help people? We had this young woman's public comment over here about a rail system or something. Would it facilitate helping commuters, or how would it improve the quality of life for the people who live here beyond bringing dollars in? Because dollars are not necessarily an improvement in quality.
Right, absolutely. The devils will be in the details. How's that project prioritization process set up? How is your CAC? How do you incorporate public input? So those are all kind of unknowns, but things that should be thought about on the early stages. So it's done in a really thoughtful way. But I feel like projects that you mentioned, like Fixed Skyway Interregional, would probably compete more effectively at a regional MPO level because you would have performance measures at that regional level rather than just the county.
And I'd just like to share some comments because I chair the TPO board, and we voted for the merger, the Board of County Commissioners. We voted for it as well. And being a part of the TPO, our regular board meeting, one of the things that Secretary David Gwynn has shared with us is that we are competing for dollars against Pasco and Pinellas. Okay. And when you look at Orlando and other areas, they all are coming together and they're getting these projects done. And we're not having the opportunity to get a lot of projects done because we're competing against each other. And the merger would bring us together. Now, how would that be structured and work? We all don't know at this time. What would make up the board? How many commissioners would be on the board? How many for each? We still don't know that right now. But I had the opportunity this winter to go to London as a part of our region. And it was a better understanding. It was all three, Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco. Well, it was to bring companies here that were in London, in the UK. But they just made sure if that company select one, whether it was Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas, they were still in our region, which made a greater economic impact for us. The region working together, and I think the MPO can be the same. We're all working together as a region for better opportunity. When we talk about transportation, housing and all, we're looking at how our region could benefit. So I think it's going to be a win-win whenever it happens. All the details have not been worked out yet. We're going to hopefully, if we vote today up or down for this, it's going to be a win-win for our county. And I'll leave it there. Any comments? Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Artie Fryer.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd just like to make one comment. As most of the comments have been, and it seems as though this will be ultimately something that we embark upon. I'd like for us as a group to be concentrating on transportation disadvantaged. And by that, I mean this. I think in each area, there is a distinctly different concern or interest in each of those counties in regard to this population. So I think it may be best for us as a group, because we're specifically concerned about transportation disadvantaged, to think about how the impact and the input from our committees are specific to our areas. Because I would hope that we wouldn't lose sight of making sure that the persons and people we serve aren't missed. Because, and I'll just use an example, I think there's rapid growth in Pasco, but the needs there certainly are probably different than what we see in Pinellas and Hillsborough. So and I think it's important for us to have that voice and that input. Certainly want to bring in dollars, but I would hope we wouldn't have persons who are in this group that we're concentrating on overlooked, because there are more specific needs in each county. So just like that is to be something for us to keep into consideration, and so that our voice specific to our area and other areas are always taken into consideration.
Thank you so much. Any other questions before we get ready to vote, yay and nay? Seeing no other comments. Hey, Gail, can you do a roll call for voting purposes, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Glenn Brown,
Yes.
Deborah Knoll,
Yes.
Artie Fryer,
Yes.
Tracy Noyes,
Yes.
Emily Hugart,
Yes.
Deborah LaKenta,
Yes.
Jennifer Waskovich,
Yes.
Alexia Wiggins,
Yes.
Councilman Schisler,
Yes.
Indira Chambers,
Yes.
Cassandra Blaylock.
Yes.
I believe that's all of their voting members. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Gail.
The motion passes 12-0.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Next, we have the election of officers.
We'll see my seat.
We have to make sure, nobody, go to the mic, please. Make sure you can hear you for the minutes as well.
So, good morning, everyone. Allison Ye, TPO staff again. As you all know, Ms. Mills, Gloria Mills passed, after the last meeting, and she was our vice chair. So today we're hoping to take a nomination for vice chair and perhaps, get that approved for the next meeting. I haven't heard any rumors of nominations yet, but I thought I'd put it to the group today and see if there was anybody who would even want to nominate yourself to be vice chair. Has to be a voting member. Councilman Schisler?
Offer myself up.
Okay. And well, the nuance with that is Councilman Schisler is our member at large, so should we go ahead and ask for a nomination for member at large as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we handle the vice chair nomination first? Is there anyone else? Now we can vote, take a vote on that.
No, he said he would like to serve as the vice chair.
Right, so we're nominating him as vice chair,
Yeah.
and we're going to vote on that, and then we'll see if we can get a nomination for member at large.
Yes.
Okay. So, Chair, I think you
I'm
have
not
to.
sure, we might need to advertise and make a statement leading to the next meeting for the member at large.
Okay, so we'll handle that in the
So we
next
only want
meeting.
to do just the vice
Okay,
chair position at this time.
so we can handle that motion right now.
Yes.
So I think someone.
Any
has to
other
make a motion.
nominations from the floor? Anyone else? Have a motion to close the nomination.
Move to close the nomination.
Second motion.
Okay. We have a motion from Board Member Glenn, second from Indira. in regarding to the vice chair
Mhm.
position. All are in favor of the vice chair position being Councilman Schitzler, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? And that motion is carried. So we're gonna make the announcement for next month for the member at large, in case someone might be interested.
Okay,
And then we'll take it that way at the next meeting.
all right, well, thank you and congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, at this time, we're gonna move right into our status report, and Caitlin Miller has to leave, so Caitlin, if you can come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today, and good morning, Commissioner Myers. It's a pleasure to see you. My name is Katya Miller. For those that do not know me, I'm the Operations Section Chief for Hillsborough County Office of Emergency Management. I'm here today to just give you a quick brief on where we are looking this hurricane season. I'm sure you guys are aware there's something brewing right now that may be coming into the Gulf, so we'll be stepping out after. Today with me, I've also brought our new Public Protection Branch Coordinator. His name is Lavander Hearn. If you guys have any questions after the brief that I don't answer and you'd like to contact me, please feel free. So there's been some updates. This was updated on the 10th of August of this year. As you guys, I'm sure, are aware, our predictions for this hurricane season being very busy has had a couple updates. It has gone up again. So it has been updated now to predicting 14 to 21 named storms, 6 to 11 hurricanes, and 2 to 5 of those being major hurricanes, which means anything from a category 3 up to a category 5. These are the names. We are currently already through H. So this new one, if it does develop into something, will be the letter I. And we are going quickly into the peak of hurricane season. So the peak of hurricane season is September 10th. We are almost there. And obviously there's been a lot going on in the Atlantic going around us. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. A little bit of information that's going to be specific to this board, and you may or may not be familiar with it. So within the Office of Emergency Management, under the Public Protection Branch, which falls under Operations Section, we have what we call the EWG, or the Evacuation Working Group. So their primary function is to plan for and, of course, execute mass evacuations in the event that that is required. We did, of course, practice this very well with Hurricane Ian last year. Hillsborough County ordered both evacuation for Zone A and B prior to Ian doing its last minute shift. We were very close to looking like Fort Myers, so we were very fortunate in that. That branch of public protection is comprised of various transportation partners that I have listed on this slide here, and many of you are also represented on this board. So HART, Sunshine Line, and Hillsborough County Public Schools, as well as Hillsborough County Fire Rescue and our private ambulance companies that we work with, AMR, AmeriCare, and TransCare. And so we work with them to really have a broad overview and representation of those that may require different types of transportation needs during an evacuation, but also any type of no notice event, something that's not necessarily a hurricane. Emergency management is an all hazards department, so sometimes we may require some type of evacuation for other hazards. With the EWG, we utilize a hub and spoke model. This is something that was executed as well during Hurricane Ian. Really what this looks like is, instead of doing, onesie twosie pickups, which we can still do if needed, but this helps us coordinate a bit more across these various partners and be able to quickly evacuate and transport folks to where they need to be across the county. We do that by utilizing 4 different transit and transfer centers that are pre-identified with HART. And then once folks are transported to those transfer centers, they get onto a Hillsborough County public school bus, which is then able to bring them to our shelters. We opened over 50 shelters for Hurricane Ian. Again, it was a perfect exercise for us because that was worst case scenario when it came to mass evacuation, and it was very successful. And then that process is done in exactly a reverse process for demobilization when we're bringing people back home or potentially having to do some type of transitional sheltering or housing. We work very closely with homeless services as well in this. A lot of our clientele within the shelters end up being folks from our homeless clientele within the community. And again, it's very successful. So the hurricane evacuation assessment tool, which we refer to as our heat map, many of you may be familiar with this. We also refer to it as Know Your Zone when we're speaking to the community where they can find this information. It also includes our evacuation routes and things that we utilize with the partners. For HART this year, we are using a lot of just the regular HART routes. They touch more of our locations if we need to do some more onesie twosie transportations. And then any information regarding, sunshine line requirements, any of the pre-registration lists that we have through the Department of Health for those that have special needs, and then anyone that may require some type of acute transport to hospitals, we can also utilize this tool a bit to get some more information. And of course, if you do not know your evacuation zone, this is how you find it out. You can type in your address. It will tell you specifically where you are located in an evacuation zone, and it'll also tell you which shelters are closest to you and when they open or if they reach capacity. So very helpful tool. If you are not signed up for HCFL Alert, please do so. This is the best way for us to make sure that you're receiving all of the updated information and any type of emergency services that we have. It has nearly 10,000 residents registered currently on there. It's a great tool for us. And then, of course, in the event of some type of imminent threat, the Office of Emergency Management can escalate any type of notification higher to utilizing our integrated public awareness and alert warning system. So just as a reminder, our second Florida sales tax holiday is coming up starting tomorrow. It runs from August 26th to September 8th. For those that have not potentially built their disaster kits and their hurricane preparedness kits for the year, now is the time to do so, and you have the tax holiday to help you. And these are the list of items that are available with that tax holiday. And at this time, that's all I have, unless there's any questions from the group.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
One of the things I would just like to say, if you haven't signed up, HCFL Alert, please do. You get, maybe 5 or 10 alerts that day. It's hurricane, really hurricane is out there. It's good for your family, share it with your family and all to sign up. Okay, thank you so much. At this time, we will hear a report from Tracy.
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
I'm Tracy Noyes. I'm the 5310 program coordinator at FDOT. I have distributed a fact sheet for the 5310 program. If anybody is lacking one, please let me know. So the purpose of the 5310 program is to meet the mobility needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities where public transit services are unavailable, insufficient, or beyond the complementary paratransit requirements of ADA of 1990. The 5310 program awards eligible agencies with both operating and capital funds. Capital and funds would include vehicles, and operating is for the operations of the agencies. The eligible recipients are CTCs, public and private nonprofit agencies under contract with the CTCs. The 5310 program differs from the Transportation Disadvantage Program because it is governed according to FTA standards and definitions of seniors, which is 65 and older, and disabled persons, and does not consider financial hardships, school or after-school trips, or other typical transportation disadvantage trips that are provided by Medicaid or other state and federal local programs. The update for this year is we are conducting our annual 5310 workshop in person, which is previously for the past 3 years have been held virtually. This year, we're going to launch it October 11th at 1 o'clock through 4 o'clock p.m. to further the specifics of the 5310 program and to launch the fiscal year 24 application cycle. This workshop provides an outline of the 5310 program, application process, oversight compliance requirements, and updates to the award processes. This workshop is mandatory for attendance in order to, for current and new applicants to be considered. We have been still trying to recover from the COVID pandemic, and the awards were put on hold while we renegotiated our state contract with the TRIPS program. So all capital awards have been at a standstill since fiscal year 21 because of drastic price increases, changes of the needs of the agencies, and unavailability of vehicles and parts. So the TRIPS contract was finalized through the negotiation process earlier this month. So we are reevaluating the needs of the agencies and the budget shortfalls and assessing the current needs of agencies. Unfortunately, we've had several agencies that have had to stop operations and return the vehicles to FDOT, where we try our best to rehome them. So I am to submit our new program of projects to central office next week. And hopefully we will hear back from them for the current awards. We encourage our agencies to continue to update their mileage so that we can assess their need assessment. So we can re-award these funds. I have a card if anybody is interested in the workshop. Again, it's mandatory attendance to be considered for the new application cycle. Anybody have any questions? Concerns?
Council.
Thank you. You indicated that some agencies had fallen apart, I guess, for lack of a better word. Any of our local agencies in that list?
Yes, sir. Goodwill Industries stopped their operations as far as vehicles. We also had Quality of Life that I'm currently working on now to rehome their vehicles. Those are the two that come to mind that are very recent.
Well, follow up to that, the customers, the beneficiaries of those programs, have they just fallen through the cracks, or have we been notified, we being Sunshine Line, for example, of the need that's been created? They have been created by their demise. We can help plug up any holes that have been created in the system.
Yes, sir. We have worked to align the agencies that have fallen through with the CTCs. I'm realigning them with, reconnecting them with Sunshine Line or other agencies that could be able to assist in coordinating these trips.
Things happen, situations occur and so forth, but as long as the customers and the beneficiaries are taken care of, that's the, to me, that's the most important thing. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? So do we have your contact information? I want to make sure they attend the online meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Do appreciate it.
Okay, moving right along. Connor? Good morning.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. And let me share my screen. All right. So Connor McDonald, TPO staff, I have a quick presentation on the 2050 Plan Needs Assessment for Equity. This is part of the Long Range Transportation Plan for 2050. Oop, my slide is not going forward. All right, so this is a new addition to the Long Range Transportation Plan. 2050 is the first time we're going to be including an equity or a needs assessment for equity. 2045 did not have this part of the plan. It will draw upon issues, needs, and recommendations identified through data analysis and public input via performance measures, the non-discrimination and equity plan, various health-related projects, the state of the system report, and some other plans and projects that TPO has conducted. So the first step was to identify some transportation focus areas. So we first used the federally defined environmental justice areas, which you can see on the map on the left. Using that, in addition to the non-discrimination equity plan from 2020 and 2021, and consultation with local governments and agencies, we created the map on the right that includes 13 focus areas. So you'll see Bealsville, south of Plant City, all the way to Town and Country, McFarland Park, and Pinecrest on the west side of the county. So after we identified those focus areas, we wanted to put them through some different categories of performance to see how they would score and to see their disparities. So for good repair and resiliency, which is a category that you saw in the 2045 LRCP, we measured these focus areas for sidewalk and pavement condition, critical and vulnerable roadways, tree canopy, and multimodal comfort. For Vision Zero, some of those categories were number of fatal and serious injury crashes, number of miles on the high injury network, and signalized intersections as safe crossings. For smart cities, we evaluated the level of particulate matter 2.5 and AADT, annual average daily traffic. Real choices, we wanted to measure jobs and people served by transit, and also walking and bicycle level of traffic stress, or LTS. So while we do have some more specific rankings and that'll become later as this is a status report, I wanted to share with you some of the preliminary findings. So Bealsville, Dover, East Tampa, Gibsonton, the USF University area, and Waimama all scored high in ranking in safety disparities or Vision Zero disparities. Carver City, and Town and Country, Pinecrest, and McFarland Park are all scored low on traffic and air quality as compared to the county average. Palm River, Claremelle, Progress Village, Ruskin scored low on repair and resiliency. And finally, Plant City, Sulphur Springs, and University Square and Thanatisasa scored low on real choices or transit access, and bicycle level of traffic stress and pedestrian level of traffic stress. So using that, we'll recommend projects coming out of these categories. So for sidewalk, for good repair and resiliency, this will be sidewalk installation and maintenance, reconstruction and rehabilitation of roadways. Vision Zero will recommend speed limit reductions and complete streets implementation, as well as installation of protected on-street bicycle facilities. Smart cities will recommend multimodal infrastructure installation and real choices, roadway improvements, addition to trail networks, and transit frequency and stop recommendations. And of course, some of these overlap in different categories, so hopefully we'll be able to cross recommend. So the next steps will be to identify specific project recommendations and to identify cost estimates for those projects. And finally, we'll produce a final report and incorporate this into the 2050 LRTP. So with that, I'll take any comments or questions.
Any comments? Anyone, any comments? Because we have no comments, but thank you so much for your report.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. And then, again, good morning.
Good morning again, Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. And I'm here to share with you the real choices when not driving needs assessment. We're at the very early stages of this. So we wanted to come to the TD board and seek your input as we perform this analysis. But just to kind of set some context first, I know many presentations have come to you about the LRTP. So I wanted to briefly talk about kind of the roadmap of how you develop a long-range plan and like how this fits in. So it's a lot like planning a road trip. You have to first figure out where are you going. So you figure out what your goals and objectives are, gather input from stakeholders. And the next phase is, what do you need to pack? What do you really need? So like Connor just mentioned his equity needs assessment. This is the real choices needs assessment that touches TD, transit, and trails. And then we also need to have a sense of our budget. What can we actually afford? What should be on that list? And then we will put together a cost feasible plan and where those priorities bubble to the top, where we think we can fund these as a community through 2050. So just to kind of set the stage, there's going to be a lot of LRTP presentations to you, but we're, again, on the very early stages, and the phase right now is where we analyze what our transportation needs are. So what exactly is the real choices needs assessment? So it has a fancy name, but really what it boils down to is projecting possibilities in 3 modes of transportation: local bus service, transportation disadvantage service, and trails and side paths. So the ways that we're going to conduct this analysis is, of course, we're going to work really closely with our partners at HART. We're going to use something called their Transit Development Plan, which is a 10-year planning product that kind of forecasts what they expect of the operator to have on the street. But the planning horizon for the LRTP is 25 years. So we have to take it even further because, you know, we're responsible to plan out to 2050. Of course, we'll be taking into consideration population and economic data, and have different performance measures to bring back to the board and the committees to offer 2 scenarios. Based on the existing level of funding, for example, on the left, we think we can provide this amount of service. So in green, it's a 1/4 of a mile service area with frequent service. So that means 1 bus coming at least every 20 minutes. And then at light green, through 2050, we think we could provide this amount of service with a little less, somewhat frequent service. So maybe 2 buses an hour. But then we'll also come back and present to you, what if there was additional funding? What could we do? So we'll have these illustrations to show, hey, with some more resources based on the needs, here's what we think can reasonably be delivered in that planning horizon. A similar methodology will be done for TD. So we'll be using your Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan, coordination with HART and Sunshine Line, and of course using data about the TD population, and do a similar analysis of, okay, here's how many trips we think we'll need through 2050, here's the annual operating cost, and try to put some numbers behind what could be provided given different levels of funding. So it's a high level kind of desktop analysis, but I'd be really interested in your thoughts, because how the TD analysis will be done, of course, we'll take HART service area and their paratransit service area, and then kind of calculate the remainder for where Sunshine Line serves. But if there are other improvements that you would like us to analyze, we would love that input because we can incorporate it early on in the process. And then similar for trails and side paths. lots of great planning has been done, and we'll be able to illustrate based on population, based on existing projects in the works, what could be provided with the existing funding and what could possibly be provided with that additional funding. So the real purpose behind this is the conversation piece. If here's what we can expect with current resources, but if this is a priority for the community and additional resources could be leveraged behind it, here's what else could possibly be delivered by 2050. So once we finalize this needs assessment, we will hand it over to the next phase of the long range planning process, where we'll take those costs from the needs assessment, and we'll take all of that revenue that's been forecasted and put together a list of what we think is feasible, what could actually be funded through 2050. So again, I mentioned we're very early on in the process, but I wanted to come here first to see if there was any input on any of those modes, but specifically TD, to incorporate in the analysis. But I'll be back to you in this fall to present the actual analysis.
Any questions? Thank you so much. Okay.
You mentioned that you are testing this, it's draft. Are consumers using this? Like 100% of the people we serve at the agency are transportation disadvantaged.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a group that sharing it with so we can get their feedback?
We were primarily going to use the TPO committees to run these scenarios by, and of course we'll be using existing plans, so the TDSP and any other materials that are available that maybe I'm not aware of. So it's an intention to kind of leverage what's already been done and then illustrate those scenarios, existing funding versus if there was more funding, what could be provided. With that being said, if there are other committees that you're aware of, we would love the opportunity to come and share.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Are there, or has there been any studies that have promoted the analysis information?
Yeah, so we try to pull from all of our partners and their existing studies, so any paratransit studies that they have, that'll directly inform this. And it's really kind of a leveraging of all those efforts to illustrate in 2050 what could be on the street. So if you're aware of other things, TD, local bus service, or trails, we would love that information to incorporate in the analysis.
Was there any public input, surveys?
So again, we're at the very beginning of the process, and going to all the TPO committees is kind of one of our ways to get some public input, but it is primarily a desktop analysis, leveraging the studies that have already been done, taking some new data in. So we're really trying to not recreate the wheel. So we haven't scoped doing a survey or anything right now. Again, the primary purpose of this needs assessment is to feed into the long range plan to see what could be funded based on past other studies and other data.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I realize it's still early in the planning stages, but talk about spending. Whose checkbook are we going to be writing these checks out of? Fed, state, if not the county?
It's all of it. So we have a revenue forecast that we've put together where that summarizes the federal, state, local funding sources, as well as some illustrative ones. So we have an analysis that backs that up, because you can't use safety money to fund TD projects. So we'll be very thoughtful about which funding sources are allocated to this based on reality. So it's not the TPO's checkbook, it's really as a community based on the funding programs and those eligibilities, what could reasonably be funded by 2050.
So there could be some private opportunities also for investment in this long range endeavor. It's something that needs to be done, but who knows what's going to be happening in 2050.
Absolutely. And actually, Councilperson Tischler, I follow the HART meetings, and I'm very excited to hear about the ad hoc committee that I think you're leading about additional revenue sources. So we're going to be keeping a close ear to that. And if anything relates to paratransit, that will absolutely be incorporated in this.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I know you stated in your report, you're at the beginning stages, For community engagement, it's really important to have that one-on-one, that you take this show out to the community and have that meeting with them.
Absolutely, I'll definitely connect with them.
I mean, I know we have all the players at the table and represented, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes we got to keep the wheel moving forward, and that community engagement will give you what you need. Okay?
And please cut the top of terrace. We'd love to talk to you.
See? At the terrace, trip over to Plant City.
Yeah.
Okay,
Got it.
all righty, thank you. Okay, moving right along. Get the ride guy. The Bernadette. Benidia. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, TD Board. This is Benita Mary Jo's TPO Fellow. Today I bring to you updates on the ride guide. I hope everyone has a draft on the table. Giving a little bit information about the ride guide. The local coordinating board in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco County guide and coordinate transportation services with the aim of improving quality of life of those, especially transportation disadvantaged, including those who are children at high risk, the older adults, those with physical and mental disabilities, and also who are economically disadvantaged. This brochure that you see gives details of some of the services that are adopted under the Transportation Disadvantage Program for each of these counties, as well as under ADA. It shows options available to those who don't have access to transportation, especially those who need wheelchair access or other services for, say, example, grocery shopping or like doctor's appointment, or even for recreational activities. And we do have costs for each of those services in this new brochure. With that, the last update of this brochure was done in 2020. And with this new update, we have all the updated services as well as costs of the new services at the local, state, and regional level. But however, if you go through the guide, there are few of the services that are marked in red. These are the services that we were not able to verify, but if you have any point of contact, please let me or Wally know so that we can update the manual and then get it done as the final version. With that, that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Where are these posted?
These are actually posted right now. I don't think it's there in our website, but end of this month, after the manual is updated completely with the missing pieces, we'll have it in our new website under Transportation Disadvantage Program.
Something that's a tri-county effort that regional TD board had mentioned is something we work on. The Hillsborough TPO and TD board has kind of taken on the task of doing it for the region. So we plan to update this regularly. The Denver just was on the website, but it's a little bit updated now with TBARTA was in transition. So that's why we usually don't bring this to you, but with all the resources here, we wanted to show you what was missing, and maybe you could help us fill in some of the gaps, especially at the regional transportation. So what the plan for this is, after you look at it, we're also getting comments from the other counties, and we're going to put it on our website, and then we'll print a number of copies and try to do an annual update from there. Yeah.
So the plan would be to have this guide in areas that would typically serve the target audience.
Right, so Sunshine Line takes them, do you put them in the vans, Jerry? I'm not sure if they're just like.
We'll work with our libraries. We'll have stuff with our drivers if needed. So we help distribute them throughout the county.
Yeah, and we will have it on our website as well, and the other counties will. Okay.
Thank you.
What about with agent services?
I think we get a number we distribute to anyone who would like them.
And we have monthly meetings with aging services, social services. So we partner to make sure they have our brochures and the updated reg guides as well.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have any comments, and you could provide them to us like in the next week or two, then we'll try to update as much as possible. But it's a living document, so if we don't catch it this year, if something changes, we'll catch it next year.
Is Greyhound still around here? Anyone know the Greyhound Fence thing?
They just have a little office and like a little
Yeah. downtown.
building.
Yeah.
It's not the old building.
Okay. Okay, they still-
They've been bought out, but they're still operating as Greyhound, but different owner and things.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, Jared?
Good morning, everyone. Jared Stickney, Sunshine Line. So I'll start with a little update. I handed out, if you're here in person, our operating stats for, we're gonna have a three-month running. So from May to July, you guys can compare. For July, for this last month we've closed out, we had 7,800 trips, 1,773 clients served. Our on-time performance, it's up at 96.1% for the month of July. And you can see through May was at 92, June 94, July 96. We've worked very, very difficult. We had a little bit of a rough patch just with our trips of getting our on-time performance. We've been working diligent to get that, and it's showing within that as our trip counts increase, we're still being able to be strategic and get that on-time performance up. Bus passes issued 1608 for the month. Our calls at 5601. Our call center had an answer rate of 97% and a hold time of 32 seconds. And you'll see that increase from the prior month. In July, we did lose a customer service rep who moved out of state. So we were down a representative for the month. Still great results. But with that, with our call center as well, we have coordinators that work on eligibility for bus pass program, our group trips, and our eligibility fee. So they're cross-trained, so they support on the call center. So, people are on vacation or we have a high call volume. So we monitor, and I think that's really what helps us stay up at that standard. And other things for us within Sunshine Line, we partnered with social services. They received a grant of $50,000 from a federal grant, and to really target people with access to fresh and healthy foods. And this was determined within the Lee Davis Community Resource Center. So we partnered in the last month to start a grocery trip, paid through this grant. And within about a month and a half or so, we've done about 100 trips. We operate Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we take those that show up. We take them to, and don't hold me to this one, I could be wrong on the location. I believe it's on Tuesdays, we go to Walmart, and on Thursdays, we go to Winn-Dixie. So we were doing that to kind of hit that. It was a needs assessment that social services did within that area, that community. So, and it's something that we haven't been able to get up off the ground. Money talks, so we got some funding, and social services reached out to us, and we were able to connect and make that work. And it's been really great so far, and we're just starting to really push it out. We had proof of concept, and it's working. So we were able to do an article with WUSF, so I'll be sure to get that to Wally and Allison. We can share it out with everybody. And we're starting to do a little more outreach to build that. And from there, social services, they're looking at other areas that we can look out and spread this a little more. Again, looking at that food desert piece of it. And even in this climate, the feels like it's 110, 115 degrees outside. So even that, 1 mile away from the access to good, fresh food, that's a long mile to walk. And if you're not buying fresh food, your ice cream's at least going to be melted still. So, we're there to support that. It's pretty awesome. It's something cool that we're able to connect with. We've also, as mentioned, the trips contract just went live with a couple of awards about a month or so ago. And we've been waiting on that contract to replenish some of our vehicles. And we have some that are ready to rotate out on 2016s. And as of early this week, we got approval and we were approved through Fleet and pushed in for an order. We're going to be piloting 3 electric Sprinter vans for Sunshine Line. So the capacity still has 9 seats, 2 wheelchair securements. So we're going to be able to have that availability. What's interesting with these electric vehicles, what we're testing and why we're not buying a ton, is the mileage. So we're pretty much guaranteed about 120 miles range. They say they go up to 140, but you got to get somewhere to plug in. But what's interesting with these is regenerative braking and regenerative charging. So as you're braking, you're charging the battery. I don't like traffic, but we have it, and I think that might help us with a little extra miles in these vehicles. So we're going to target that within the central Tampa area, and I think within our Plant City area. We have a lot of trips every day in Plant City, and they're it's tied within that area, so the mileage we can support. And our system currently, we track miles, so we know how many miles they do per day, revenue miles, our miles in between them fueling up, things like that. So we've got an idea of what routes these can work in. So I'm excited about that. Turnaround time, allegedly, they said 3 to 5 months. I'll be very shocked, if I'm being honest, but it's an effort that Ford pushed out with the electric vehicles. So they have chassis on the ground, and that's the hardest part to get. So they're here, so we'll stay tuned. So hopefully before the end of the year, we can be piloting electric vehicles and we'll be able to sort that out. So excited about that piece of it. And then we're also working new scheduling software. We currently have Route Match as a system, and I believe this was talked about quite a while ago. We're actually wrapping up our procurement today. We'll be here reviewing the final 3 softwares, and we'll be doing demonstrations and choosing that today. So it's been a long process, and we'll get into that. And what's neat about all the different softwares, there's a lot of real-time optimization as an option, taking in live traffic data. There are pieces that are available to help with even client applications, to do an online format, potentially create an app through those softwares down the road. So it gives us a lot more opportunity to dive in and to be able to expand down the road as well. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a long couple of days, or long afternoon as we wrap through that. And then last thing, we'll talk about the TD Tampa Bay, the cross-county trips. On your sheet at the bottom half, those are all the numbers from start to finish, from November to June. And November, that's when we went to the board, as it got approved, then we were able to actually start referring everybody. So program totals, 621 in-county trips for the program, 300 cross-county, and then 219 that was specific for Saturday trips as well. So, we looked at this data, one, to see what the needs are, what was going on. We pushed it through our call center. We put it out to all of our partners. And from this, the program is continuing, but for cross-county only. So those in-county trips are no longer part of the innovation grant with the state, but they did continue with that cross-county. So people will continue to have that availability. And with this wrapping up and our procurement wrapping up for our software program, this data really kind of solidified for us the best financial and fiscal responsibility for the biggest bang for your buck to support that is through looking at a vendor that can help provide those after hours overflow and weekend service. So when you look at the overhead for our drivers, our buses, supervisors, dispatch center, it doesn't equate fiscally responsibly in my mind and from our staff. And now that we actually have numbers and we pushed it, kind of supports that. So we'll be at the CTD conference next week in Orlando. So we'll be getting some more information there, and then we'll be working on putting together another procurement to get a partner and a vendor to help us support with those trips. So the data's there, and I think it's pretty clear. There's those that need it and want it, so let's provide it and let's do it the best way that we can. And I think that's going to be working with a vendor. And I'm sure I missed something, so I'm just going to scroll through here. And I did not. I hit it all. So that's all I have. Pending any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Lynn.
I have a question. So with the new trucks, the electric ones, that's exciting, and you're working on that mileage thing. Are you also trying to figure like a fast charge or something for the time down that you're going to have in between, because it won't be able to?
Absolutely, absolutely. So fortunately, the county has taken an initiative with newer buildings they've built. In Waimama, for example, the Suncoast Family Health Center that's partnered with our AD services site, they have fast chargers that they built into that parking lot, which we could have access to. We're talking to Fleet about every Fleet location adding chargers as well. Plus, with where our office is at, we already have built-in power to where we park. So it's just a quick little transition for our operating. But with that, that's where it's going to be really keen on picking the right routes that where they really travel 80 to 90 miles a day. We know that. But so the answer, yes, we are looking at that. And also with, we have WEX cards that are available for gas purchasing at the different gas stations. I've asked Fleet to look at, is there a WEX card for electric charging? So they don't know, but they're going to look into it and find out. So then at that point, if we're in a pinch and we're in the middle of nowhere, which there's a lot of middle of nowheres around here in the county, out of the rural parts, and we'll be able to find something to get some charged quick. So.
It was literally the same question.
Okay, Cassandra.
So, Jerry, I know that we're having some increase in COVID again. Any adjustments you plan?
So as of right now, we're monitoring the adjustments. What we do still have, we have the barriers on all our buses still. So those have not come down. We don't plan to take them down. We also still, we installed UV air purifiers in every vehicle during the pandemic, and those are staying. And in fact, we got it worked out. We have extra we're going to be installing in every vehicle we have moving forward. So that's going to be a standard for us for air purification. Yeah, and in our screening, when we ask people when they're booking trips, are you experiencing any illnesses, things like that? So we ask the questions still just to, be safe. We can only go off of what people tell us, but we also know you could be fine, and you book 2 to 7 days in advance, you're fine then, and then you're not. And to be honest, there is a sense of, for our TD population, our group, if they're going to the doctor to get checked out because they don't feel well, we don't take them, we don't know. And they can't get there. So I think there comes into a point of that. So our customer service team, we actually took initiative to talk to all of our reps, and if they get that feeling, we could do special trip arrangements to where if we know it with volunteers, we can have a driver, we have masks, we can put them on the bus, only them on the bus, put them in the back, and we can keep our 6 feet distance. So we've talked about that, and it's an option. So the team knows that if that arises, we can still accommodate. But if they know they tested positive for COVID, that's where we've actually reached out to our partners with emergency management, with AmeriCare, TransCare, and we're not medical provider transportation, but if it's an illness, things like that, we try to make sure we get to where they need to.
That's what I wanted, because I didn't want to have to shut all the way back down again.
Yeah.
Just keep the service going instead of shutting down.
Yeah.
That's
Any other questions? Yes.
Is Sunshine Line a door-to-door service?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to share with the group that Wally and I wrote the system on Tuesday as part of the system evaluation, and we participated in the grocery trip, and that was so wonderful, like 10 of the happiest ladies I've ever seen, and really made a good impression on the county too. We were wearing our county shirts, and they, I think that was really good for the county, and I'm so glad that we're participating in that program. Yeah.
Excellent program. No? You have something else to say? Okay, thank you so much, Jared, for your report. Justin?
Paces is here. Paces.
Okay. Hey, Jesus. You didn't tell me. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Jesus. Justin couldn't make it, but I'm a fair replacement, I think.
I didn't say that. You said that. We're glad you're here.
I'm trying to keep the self-esteem low, or high. Hi, I meant high. So I'm here to provide an update on our Heart Plus service, which is our ADA paratransit service offering. It's a very complex service, but we're going to be looking at 2 metrics over the past 3 months. The first metric is on-time performance. This one you're looking at here is the drop-off on-time performance. So did we get you to your appointment on time? You can see we've been in the 90s for the past 3 months. Low 90s in May, high 90s in June, July. Explanation is summer traffic is lower. Also, passenger volumes are lower during the summer. Next, we have the pickup on-time performance. That we pick you up on time or late. You will see, we'll look at this a bit differently. You will see the trips dropped. That's because we transport a lot of special need kids to school. So during summertime, we don't have those trips. And then also as a result, we have less delays. Not only because there's less traffic, but we're also carrying less people. The other metric we'll look at is ridership. paratransit ridership is split into subscriptions and demands. Subscriptions are the recurring trips. So I have a dialysis appointment every Monday and Wednesday at this time. I need to be there. Those are the subscriptions. They drop during the summer because most school kids are on their subscription plans. And then you'll notice that subscription plus demands doesn't equal total. That is because we have the cancellations and no-shows, because paratransit is a booking-based system, so people book to be taken somewhere. And like any booking system, people can cancel ahead of time, or it happens that we have no-shows, and as you can see, those were also lower during the summertime. Lastly, we have the taxi contract. We contract with Yellow Cab to manage our overflow on our late night service. And that ridership has remained relatively constant because that's not as dependent on the school cycle. That's it for the paratransit update. Thank you. And if you have questions or comments, I'm happy to answer them.
We want to keep you on the hot, so any
This is Deborah LaKenta. I have a question.
yes, good morning, go ahead, please.
Good morning. My question is, do you have a standard where the maximum time a person can be on your vehicle? If they were picked up at a certain time, is there a maximum time that they can only be on the vehicle? I worked with the Area Agency on Aging previously, and they did have a standard. And I was just wondering if there's a standard for Heart Plus.
Not to my knowledge, but I would need to check.
I would be curious if you guys can see how long a person is on a vehicle. I was at one of visiting a site, and one of the clients said that she was on the vehicle for 2.5 hours. So these are obviously people with disabilities, and that did concern me that you had a rider on the vehicle for 2.5 hours. And this is not the first time I heard this, so I don't know if there's some way that you guys can track the time a person is picked up, you know, if you have multiple stops, when the last person is actually dropped off. You guys have for that? Is there metrics that you guys track for that?
I don't believe we track it actively, but it is a complaint we have heard repeatedly. It is a combination of several factors, low budget, a fleet that's at capacity. Our staff is at capacity as well. And we're trying to manage that overflow with Yellow Cab, but that's also a complex dynamic.
I understand staffing. I understand, you know, that this does happen. However, I think that if you tracked it, and if you were able to do some sort of presentation, maybe there's some grants out there or something that could help provide some more funding. So these clients are not on the vehicle. If they're going someplace, they're on for 2.5 hours. They come home, it's 2.5 hours, and wherever they're at in between, that's a lot of time just to get to a place that maybe doesn't normally take 2.5 hours. So I think that this was something that you guys should probably start looking into. So if there's any federal grants that come up, you would have statistics to show that, you know, we need to decrease this number or this time frame. Again, these are the vulnerable population. These aren't people that I don't feel should be on any vehicle for that length of time.
Point well taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like to share your contact information with Jesus so he can follow up with a response to you, that would even be better. If you all could connect.
Yeah, my email is on screen. Feel free to send me an email.
I do see your email. I'll send you an email on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus. Any other questions for Jesus? Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you so much. You have any old business? Any old business coming forward? Any new business? New?
Okay, I would just like to formally welcome Wally Gallard, who will be your TD liaison starting next month.
Oh, Wally.
Planning Commission with land use and transportation. And that's it. Well, you guys have kind of contacted me already, so you probably know him pretty well, but we're really excited that he's joining us.
Anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah.
Thank you. Really excited to be here. Looking forward to working with you all. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, here none. Next meeting, okay, October 13th, in person, and in person, October 13th. Thanks so much, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. I parked the passes. Oh, I did.